support of John Baggs and get reduced and change what we need through the deal to accept?
Well, I haven't had any direct discussions with them about it, but they will obviously want to look at the deal, but my expectation is yes, they'll support it. Oh, well, look, I don't remember having any conversations with them. I think at the end of the day, we'll be wanting to present the deal to them. But, you know, my sense is if we can conclude a deal, then they will see the same benefits that many New Zealanders will see, which is more jobs, better opportunities for our young people, a good environment to be operating in, and 200,000 extra visitor nights coming from overseas. And I think all of those things make that deal pretty compelling. As we know, the deal is unlikely to require taxpayer funds or us running the convention centre. Again, I think they're all positives. Well, I haven't had, from memory, I can't remember having any detailed discussions with them, but no, I wouldn't expect problems. I mean, providing we can get a deal concluded with Sky City, which is logical. I mean, that's been the process of negotiation now with officials and the Minister of MED's office for some time. Obviously, we're working hard to make sure it's a good deal for taxpayers, can't just be a good deal for Sky City. But if that's the case, then hopefully we'll get there. I think it's getting closer, last time I asked. Don't know exactly. I mean, as the Minister said yesterday, he's always reluctant to put a date on these things because it weakens the government's negotiating hand.
You say unlikely to require taxpayer funds. I thought it couldn't require taxpayer funds for the government to go ahead with.
Well, there's always a range of options, but our preferred options we don't have to put taxpayer funds in.
You still will go ahead with it if there is a requirement for taxpayer funds?
Well, let's wait and see. My preferred option is we don't have to put taxpayer funds in.
Isn't it odd that you haven't done a study at all on, you know, any social impact or harm from increasing the number of poking machines at Sky City, but to weigh that up against the economic benefits that you say would come from it?
We've done a feasibility study on the overall economic benefits of a convention centre, and what that showed was that there are real benefits for the region and for the country, but they're not all captured in one place, which is the convention centre, and that's the reason why these things never generally wash their face, and that's what we've seen around the world. In terms of poking machines and the impact of that, well, the good news part of this story is there'll be less poking machines in New Zealand, not more, so the economic or social impact is less impact, not more impact.
But there's going to be fewer poking machines anyway, because, I mean,
that's a great story then, isn't it?
But you're going to put in more into the Auckland casino, and so there'd be even fewer if it weren't for this deal.
Maybe or maybe not, but all I can tell you is there'll be less than there is today.
How many jobs do you estimate all up that the convention centre would create?
About 800 full-time and part-time, and about 900 to construct it.
So there was, the Herald actually did an interesting comparison over the weekend to other convention centres that showed actually a lot fewer full-time staff for greater participation. Where do your numbers come from?
Yeah, ours are advice from MED, but you've got to remember the Herald used full-time equivalents. They didn't use casual staff. If you have the combination of full-time and casual, comes up to 800. They use a multiplier effect of some order. Again, if you look at Melbourne has about 500 casual staff, as I understand, working in the convention centre.
So you're talking about the jobs that relate directly to the operation of the convention centre?
About 800.
900 in construction and
Correct.
build-up.
That's the advice I've had.
The Melbourne Convention Centre is half owned by a New Zealand investment fund, which you didn't consider as good a bet as Sky City. Can you explain why? I mean, did you ever get any numbers?
Well, I think when you say you're using that in the royal sense. For a start off, the decision about whether it was decided as a good deal or not was made by MED officials. They looked at all 5 of the particular proposals. They used a series of assessments to make a judgment call, but in the application put in by Infratil, there was no recommendation that they would be putting in any funding. So it would have required 100% government funding.
Did you ever talk to Lord Morrison about it?
Not from memory, no.
So can you see why that might give the impression that Sky City had the inside running, given that you had discussions with them? But, you know, despite Lord Morrison pretty well noted, policy pretty well noted, he was a businessman, personally writing to you.
Well, firstly, if in theory we had gone down that route, you'd be making the same claims, wouldn't you? You'd say that because I knew Lloyd Morrison and because he contacted me directly, somehow they got the deal. Secondly, we went through the process of saying that we wanted a convention centre with quite a number of parties. We also said, why don't you put up your best option, but the government's preferred option is not to put in cash. There was only one bid that came in that position, and that was Sky City. And for that reason, it was a much more superior bid to any of the others.
Can you say that categorically if those other bidders would reduce numbers? Because I think this morning you've said that you've just made it clear Sky City were the only ones that came up.
They were the only ones, yeah.
With numbers.
Correct.
But you never saw any numbers from any of the other bidders.
What I saw was I didn't look at all of the bids. I got a recommendation. MED handled that process, went through a full and thorough process across a number of criteria. MED came back with a recommendation that said, look, if you want to build a convention centre, firstly, we think this is a superior bid on a number of different categories: location, ability to run it, likely to be successful, etc., but also doesn't require government funding.
So very clearly, the MED advice to you was to go with Sky City.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
The long-term jobs that creates them, from what you're saying, will be casual and most likely low paid, won't they?
I wouldn't accept that. Firstly, I mean, there'll be about 900 jobs of people who construct it, and they're not low paid. As we know, there's a big range there. And as I say, about 800 full-time or casual, will be a variety of different things. But, I mean, if you take a step back from that, that is the convention centre. And I think you've got to understand why the government's in this position. That is because it wants a national convention centre that, as I said to you, it captures some of the economic benefit at that convention centre, but not all of it. So I don't know whether you class a 747 or a 777 captain as low paid or unskilled. I don't. But they'll be flying the people in from overseas, landing at Auckland Airport. I don't know if you consider a top chef at a major restaurant to be low paid or unskilled, but I don't. And many of those people will be eating there. In the end, the government wants this for a very clear reason: economic growth and jobs. And this will create 200,000 visitor nights who spend roughly double what the average tourist does at the moment. Now, this is an industry that right back to 2003 has been arguing that a national convention centre is an important piece of infrastructure to grow the tourism sector. As I've said so often last week, there is nothing magical about this, and despite your best efforts, no conspiracy. It is just a simple fact of life that the government wants to see a national convention centre, and this might come as a shock to you, but Bill English doesn't have $350 million to give me to build one.